Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQIA plus film festival. This is our 37th year, and we have some amazing programming I'm so excited about. One of the films that we cannot wait to share with you is Under the Influencer. I'm going to read a brief description of the film, and then we're going to talk to some of the team behind the film. I mean, digital artist Lex documents her struggle with anxiety through her work that she posts anonymously online. Her pieces capture the attention of cunning curator Andrea Caulfield, who offers mentorship in exchange for control of Lex's career. When Lex's mental health starts to spiral from the pressure, Andrea assumes ownership of her work, prompting Lex to plot a psychological showdown against the exploitative mentor who stole her art and destroyed her mind. We have some great people with us. We have the producer, Jill Bennett. We have the co-director, technical director, Lauren Neal, also in the film. And we have Erin Matthews from the film as well. I'm so excited to talk to you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jim. We're excited to be here.
This
Thank
is,
you for having us.
we love this film and I cannot wait for Atlanta to see it. But first of all, let's just sort of start with how this all came together. Joe, how did the project come up?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I never call my wife Lauren. I call her Babe. So if you hear me referring to Babe, that's who I'm talking about. So Babe, do you want to give them the origin story of the film?
Sure, I'll give a quick origin story. I was supposed to direct something in 2020 after I won a contest. But after the pandemic happened, we weren't sure if that was ever going to happen. So Jill and I were sitting at home alone, like everyone else in 2020, and trying to think of something that we could literally film with just us in our garage. We enlisted a friend of ours who's a really successful screenwriter that we'd always wanted to work with, and we kind of just started working on an idea. We tabled it for a while until the opportunity to pitch the idea came up in a pitch competition.
Mhm.
And so Jill and I pitched the idea for this film along with just a couple of key members of the team. We ended up winning that competition, and then the rest of the pieces kind of fell together. So yeah, it all happened pretty quickly. The idea for this particular film came from a desire to tell a story that could be done with limited resources. That was always part of the plan and part of the idea. And the project sort of grew in scope and ambition as it went on, as these things sort of seem to do. But that's kind of where it all began.
Erin, how did you come aboard?
Well, lucky for me, Jill decided she didn't want to star in the film. So lucky.
Yes.
In comes Babe number two. So I have known Jill and Lauren for many, many years. Jill and I have worked together in the past on stage many times.
Mhm.
And so yeah, she felt like I could tackle the delightful role of Andrea. And so I was lucky enough to join the team. And it was off to the races from there.
There was no one else, honestly, Jim. Like when once I realized that I would have to produce this film, I knew that I couldn't possibly do the part justice.
Mhm.
And Erin truly is one of my favorite actors on the planet. And we have done a lot of stuff on stage together. I mean, absolutely. It was like Erin will play this part. There is no one else to do this. We didn't talk to anyone else. We didn't consider anyone else. It was always going to be Erin. And thank God we did, because she is 100 times better than I ever would have been in this part. She was absolutely born to play it. And I think our friendship, knowing that we have all been friends in real life,
Mhm.
absolutely helped the process. And the familiarity between Lauren and Erin, obviously what's interesting in the film is that the characters don't actually meet face to face until in the basically third act of the film. But so we had to sort of create like the chemistry of sorts between phone calls and text messages
Yeah.
and whatnot. But yes, we were lucky enough that Erin was available to us and willing to get on this crazy train of a low budget project.
There's such a complexity to this relationship. It's so fascinating to watch. But or just tell me a little bit about Lex and how you think the character kind of changes throughout the course of the film.
Absolutely. So something that's always been most interesting to me about piece is the relationship between art and artists. I've always been sort of interested in that. My early academic background is in performance studies, so it's really about the stories and the narratives that we tell ourselves about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that something that Lex really does is try to understand herself through her artwork. And so it really makes sense that through the course of the film, it's like she's trying to figure out the relationship that she has with Andrea and figure out Andrea even herself through art, right? And whether that's her original sort of still images, visual art pieces, or um, eventual performance art or other sorts of artistic mediums that Lex experiments with in the film. Um, yeah, Lex is interesting. One of the things that I like most about this project is there's sort of an imperative that comes up, I think, in the film that sort of reminds us that when we employ and make use of our communities and the people that we have behind us,
Hmm.
we're usually more successful. I feel like Alexa's really isolated in the beginning of the film, and that's why she's so susceptible to Andrea's manipulation and sort of that pull. Is because Lex is not really connected to the people that she used to be around in her art community, and she's not as close to her parents or her academics and her work. And that's when she becomes more, again, isolated and susceptible to what Andrea, sort of the power that she has over her. And so I think that throughout the course of the film, Lex sees the value in bringing along other people to kind of help her in this plot, this vengeance that she seeks to enact against Andrea. And I think that's one of the coolest things that we see Lex sort of go throughout the course of the film is realizing that having the people behind her, she'll be more successful.
Okay. And can you talk to me about Andrea?
Oh, Andrea. My goodness. Uh, to me, Andrea is, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the artist's way at all, but she's kind of this version of the shadow artist that is just kind of as powerful as that can be. I mean, aside from her own personal demons, I think work-wise, she's just not the artist that she wanted to be. And so she's just kind of this energy vampire. Well, and also money, but she kind of uses her clout and ability to manipulate and coerce people into what's hot and what's not, as a way to dominate the scene in a way that she couldn't as an artist on her own.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I just love the dynamic between the characters. It's just so fascinating. But there are, so many themes that come up throughout the film. The film examines ownership, online life, and the cost of creativity. Can you all sort of speak about some of those themes that are in this film?
I mean, I'll jump in and say, there's so much about this film that parallels our lives as struggling filmmakers. Like, we worked on this film specifically. Lauren put in more time than anybody as the editor and technical director. She made all the art in the film, and this was all done unpaid. We couldn't pay ourselves in order to put all the money on the screen, and the amount of time and how, in order to succeed to some degree, you have to just almost kill yourself
Mhm.
to get these projects made. So, there's a lot of Lex and Lauren and Lex, and also the idea of predatory. Although I do want to add, like, one of the reasons I love Erin as an actor is that she does bring a level of complexity. Yes, Andrea is absolutely predatory. At the same time, there are a couple moments in the film, if you're really watching Erin's performance, where you see Andrea sort of recognizing what she's doing and having a reaction to it, almost like she knows what she's doing is wrong, and then she gets back into capitalism mode. But there is a complexity there, and there is a true love and an admiration for Lex, which you see that the one moment in the film where there is vulnerability with Andrea is that she does actually care about her in a way as well. So there's a lot going on. But in terms of like the struggling artist, this is what we live every day. None of us are rich and making a great living as artists, yet here we are, 30 years into our careers, and we just can't seem to give it up. And for me, that's like a major theme of this film that resonates with me as an artist, is that no matter, how much struggle I've had throughout the years, I just can't seem to get away from it.
Yeah.
There's
I
certainly a lot about ownership in art too. That's obviously really prevalent in the film, and that's super relevant when we're talking about. There's so many conversations around AI and artificial intelligence and generative art, and sort of data sets and how companies are mining the internet for images and sort of taking the sum and substance of all of our lives now and sort of regurgitating it and blending it up and turning it out and spitting it back at us in some form. And so I think it's really interesting, the idea of, posting art or things that you create online without your name attached to them, and what happens to them when they go out into the universe, and that's something that we see every day when people take something someone else posted on Twitter and post it on their own account without accreditation, right? And so I think there's a lot that's really interesting about ownership and authorship in this film.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing this, in a theater, because I've seen it on my little computer, and I thought it was wow, I cannot wait to, this is just so visually rich. I cannot wait to see it on the screen. But what's it like to see this with an audience?
It's really fun. There are a couple things in the film that, to be honest, we are always like sort of anxious to see how
Yeah.
the audience responds. Or how long it's going to take the audience to see that, to figure out what's actually happening and decide how much they hate us or certain characters or not. I don't want to give anything away. You have to come to the screening this Friday to find out what I'm talking about. But that's always really exciting because you never know, right? So I actually want to watch the movie in the theater with every single audience that watches it as much as possible, because I want to have that experience of seeing how folks react to certain parts of the film.
Me too. And then I want to go around and apologize to each person individually for Andrea's behavior. It's kind of my response.
Um, so this was a diverse queer female team making this film. Can you sort of talk about having that kind of environment, why that was important?
It was from the start, absolutely imperative. In fact, that's how I think partly why we won the pitch contest is that we promised an inclusive, diverse set, and that women were going to be the driving force behind this film. So from the beginning, the design of the project, from the above the line team all the way down to everyone in the crew. I mean, we use students in our, for a large portion of our crew were film students,
Mhm.
um, which is something that was also from the beginning, the plan was to pay it forward and to give opportunity to young female and non-binary folks that can get, actually, they have their first credit before they even graduated from college. They were on a real film set. And that is not an opportunity that is afforded to many people, period.
Yeah.
I mean, it's challenging. It's not easy to work, on a low budget project with people who don't have as much experience. But we know for a fact a few of these students, definitely after because we interviewed them, they said, I feel ready to be on a set now. Like I got the experience that I needed. So this was by design, and it is part of a bigger production model, Fair Play Films, which my little hat behind me, Fair Play Films, this is the proof of concept for that production model, which is a low budget production model that puts underrepresented filmmakers in front and behind the camera. So we wanted to prove that we could do this. I think we did for 60,000. We never want to do it again at that budget level because it's just too difficult.
Yeah.
But we know that really high quality films can be made for 500,000 and under. And this movie, I think, is proof of that.
Thank you, Osman. All right, I have one final question for all of you. Can you talk about the importance of queer representation?
Absolutely. I think, it's it's interesting because we've heard from a few people specifically about this film that it's like not really like a queer film or an LGBTQ film because it doesn't have some of the hallmarks of LGBTQ films. And I kind of took issue and take issue when I hear that right away because I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? What is a queer film? We have to have 30% this number of kisses or like, I don't know. I don't know what that means, right? So for us, it's a queer film because a lot of the team and cast and crew and obviously characters that exist in it, but also the modes of production and things about that were sort of queered in the making of this project. But beyond that, I think it's really important to have films like ours in queer festivals because it isn't a film that is explicitly about anybody's identity. That's not a coming out story. It's not there's a bit of a romance in the project, but it's not explicitly a romance film or explicitly about a romantic relationship. It's about many different types of relationships, familial, platonic, friendship. And I think right now, what I want to see is queer representation like that, right? Queer people that exist in all sorts of facets of life who are art curators and artists and interviewers on podcasts and all sorts of things like that, because that's my life. I'm not coming out every day, it's kind of it's years ago. So I need to see other types of queer representation, queer people just living the way I am trying to live with my wife and the friends that we have and the things that we're going through on a regular basis. So um, that's what queer representation is to me right now, anyway. It's sort of getting away from the whatever those tropes and hallmarks of the typical queer film is.
That's great. Jill, Erin, do you have any comments or
I totally agreed with
Okay.
Lauren and just thinking about how, I grew up in the 80s. I didn't see any, it was Daisy Duke and who else? There weren't a lot of options. Weren't a lot of these stories being told in any way. Like we had Billie Jean King. I think that was about anybody that we could look up to. And so I think truly, and like Lauren was saying too, the stories don't have to be about being queer. They can be characters who happen to be queer dealing with other stuff. So I think that's really important. I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been making explicitly queer content consciously for, since a long time. So it continues to be important to me, and it is where I want to put my time and energy because I know how important it is because I was that kid growing up in the 80s and 90s. Exactly what Erin said. I had nobody. I had nothing. I mean, there were like 3 or 4 films that we had specifically for women, and I was like, I want to make content that young girls and women who are out can see themselves reflected. So it is super important. It doesn't matter that we are now more mainstream. We still need explicitly queer content because our content is getting canceled at alarming rates on network and streaming services. So despite the fact that we have made huge advances in queer rights and then, visibility, we still need content that speaks directly to our audience. So, we thank film festivals like Out on Film for continuing to do this. This is a huge festival. We were absolutely over the moon to get in. I mean, first of all, Atlanta is now, in my mind, the entertainment capital of the country. It's not Los Angeles anymore. And this film festival is huge, and we know that. So we are so honored to go. I unfortunately can't be there, but you will see Lauren and Erin. They will be there for the festival, and we're honored to be invited to this festival.
That is amazing. Thank you all so much. All right. Under the Influence screens Friday, October 4th at 9 p.m. at Outfront Theater Company, and then begins a brief streaming week as well. I am so excited about this film. Jill, Lauren, Erin, thank you for sharing this film with us. I cannot wait to share it with our audiences. And thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having us.
Thank you so much.